They called it one of the most beautiful love songs ever written. But the truth behind Annie's song reveals a story that will shock you. John Denver's marriage to Annie Martell wasn't the fairy tale millions believed it to be. Behind the romantic lyrics and gentle melodies lay a relationship torn apart by fame, betrayal, and ultimately violence. What really happened between these two? The answer involves multiple affairs, a devastating divorce, and one of the most bizarre acts of revenge in music history. This is the untold story of how America's sweetheart couple became a cautionary tale of love gone wrong. It all began like something out of a movie. In 1966, a young folk singer named Henry John Deutschendorf Jr. was performing with the Chad Mitchell Trio at Gustavus Adolphus College in Minnesota. In the audience sat sophomore Annie Martell, a small-town girl studying at the college. John later admitted he fell in love the moment he saw her. Annie was wearing blue jeans, a lumberjack shirt, and penny loafers. Nothing fancy, but something about her captivated him completely. Their courtship was pure romance. John would drive hours just to see Annie, writing songs and letters during their year-long relationship. When he finally proposed in 1967, Annie initially said no, feeling overwhelmed by his intensity. But after her best friend convinced her to reconsider, she called John back and said yes. Their wedding on June 9th in '67 was intimate and beautiful, held at Annie's family's dinner club, Holiday House, along the river outside St. Peter. At this point, John was still struggling to make it in music, and Annie was his biggest supporter. She believed in his talent when nobody else did, encouraging him through countless rejections and failed auditions. Little did they know that success would become their biggest enemy. John's career exploded in the early 1970s, with hits like Take Me Home, Country Roads, and Rocky Mountain High. Suddenly, the struggling folk singer became a household name, selling millions of records and headlining his own TV specials. But fame came with a devastating price for Annie. As John's star rose, Annie felt herself disappearing. In a 1979 interview with People magazine, she admitted feeling completely lost. "I didn't know who I was. I didn't have an identity," she confessed. While John was performing for thousands of screaming fans, Annie sat at home in Aspen, Colorado, wondering how she could compete with his adoring public. The constant touring and recording schedule meant John was away for months at a time. When he returned, he was a different person, more demanding, more self-absorbed, and less interested in their quiet life together. Annie later revealed that they were too young and immature to handle such sudden, overwhelming success. The pressure became so intense that in the mid-1970s they briefly separated. John fled to Switzerland for 6 days, leaving Annie devastated. She would wake up at 4 a.m. crying and wouldn't stop until she fell asleep from exhaustion. But that was just the beginning of their troubles. During their brief reconciliation, something magical happened that would fool millions of fans for decades. In 1974, while riding a ski lift in Colorado, John was overwhelmed with feelings for Annie and wrote Annie's song in just 10 minutes. The romantic ballad with lyrics like "You fill up my senses like a night in a forest" became one of the most beloved love songs of all time. To the world, it seemed like proof of their perfect marriage. The song hit #1 on the charts and sold nearly 2 million copies. Fans saw it as the ultimate romantic gesture, a husband so in love he could capture those feelings in minutes and share them with the world. But the reality was far different. Annie's song was actually John's desperate attempt to save a marriage that was already falling apart. It was written during a brief period of reconciliation after their separation, when both were trying to make things work despite fundamental problems they couldn't solve. The song became a beautiful lie that masked the ugly truth beneath. While millions fell in love with the romantic story, Annie knew it represented a brief moment of happiness in an increasingly troubled relationship. The success of the song only added more pressure to maintain the perfect image that was crumbling behind closed doors. What the public never knew was that John Denver was living a double life. Despite writing one of the most romantic songs ever recorded, he was having multiple affairs throughout their marriage. Annie discovered John's infidelities, and the betrayal cut deeper than any career pressure ever could. John later admitted to these multiple episodes of infidelity in interviews, showing no remorse for how his actions destroyed Annie's trust. The man who sang about pure love and natural beauty was secretly meeting other women while his wife waited at home. Friends close to the couple revealed that John's ego had grown as large as his fame, and he felt entitled to whatever he wanted. Annie tried to forgive him, desperately wanting to keep their family together for the sake of their 2 adopted children, Zachary and Anna Kate. The couple had adopted these kids after discovering John couldn't have biological children, and Annie poured all her maternal love into raising them, but forgiveness became impossible when John's affairs became more frequent and obvious. Annie realized she was married to a man who publicly proclaimed his love for her while privately betraying her with other women. The final straw came when she could no longer pretend their marriage was salvageable. When Annie finally filed for divorce in 1982, John's reaction revealed a side of him that shocked everyone who knew them. The gentle folk singer with the soothing voice became violent and unhinged during their property settlement. The most infamous incident happened when Annie cut down some oak trees on their Aspen property while John was away. These weren't just any trees. John had an obsession with them and felt Annie had destroyed something precious. His response was beyond disturbing. John returned home carrying a chainsaw and calmly told Annie, "You shouldn't have done that." Then he proceeded to cut everything in their house in half. He chainsawed the kitchen table, destroyed furniture, and most symbolically cut their marital bed straight down the middle with the roaring chainsaw. But the violence didn't stop there. In a fit of rage, John reportedly tried to strangle Annie during the divorce proceedings. The man millions admired for his peaceful, nature-loving image had become physically abusive toward the woman he once claimed inspired his greatest love song. This shocking incident revealed John Denver's true temperament and showed Annie just how dangerous her ex-husband could become when he didn't get his way. The chainsaw became a symbol of how completely their love had been destroyed. After their divorce was finalized, Annie made a conscious decision to disappear from public life completely. She settled quietly in Aspen, Colorado, focusing entirely on raising Zachary and Anna Kate away from the spotlight that had destroyed her marriage. Unlike many celebrity ex-wives, Annie never sought attention or tried to capitalize on her connection to John Denver. She worked as a psychologist and school commissioner, rebuilding her identity separate from her famous ex-husband. Annie received a significant divorce settlement, though the exact amount was never disclosed. When John died tragically in a plane crash in 1997, something unexpected happened. Despite everything he had put her through, the affairs, the abuse, the chainsaw incident, Annie was appointed administrator of his $60 million estate. She could have been vindictive but instead showed incredible grace, dividing his assets equally among all three of his children, including Jesse Bell from his second marriage. Today, at 78 years old, Annie still lives in Aspen in a $4 million mansion. She remains unmarried, having never found love again after John. She occasionally appears in documentaries about John's life, always speaking respectfully about their relationship despite the pain he caused her. Her strength and dignity in the face of such betrayal is truly remarkable. The most surprising truth about Annie Martell is how she's chosen to honor John's legacy despite everything that happened between them. She could have written tell-all books, given explosive interviews, or tried to destroy his reputation after his death. Instead, she's maintained a dignified silence that speaks volumes about her character. Annie still attends events celebrating John's music and has spoken at the John Denver Sanctuary in Aspen, where lyrics from Annie's song are carved into a boulder. When asked about the song, she said, "That's beautiful. It's about love, and it's about nature, and how that stirs those profound feelings up." Her ability to separate the art from the artist shows incredible maturity. The real tragedy is that Annie never remarried or found lasting love again. At 78, she remains single, suggesting that John's betrayal left wounds that never fully healed. She focuses on her children and grandchildren, living quietly while John's music continues to bring joy to millions who have no idea of the pain behind the songs. Annie Martell's story is ultimately one of survival and grace under pressure. She loved a man who couldn't love her back the same way, endured public humiliation and private abuse, yet chose forgiveness over revenge. That's the real truth behind Annie's song, not just a love story, but a testament to one woman's incredible strength.